Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of the Mission Matters Money Podcast, your source for all things money. My name is Adam Torres. You can follow me on Instagram at @AskAdamTorres. Keep up with my book releases, book tour schedule, signings, all that other good stuff. Always love to connect with you there. And as always, if you'd like to apply to become a co-author of one of my upcoming books, just head on over to the website, missionmatters.com, and click on Become an Author to apply. All right, so today I have Jeff Love on the line, and he's a partner over at Gibbs, Giddens, Loker, Turner, Sennett, and Whitbro. Jeff, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me on.
All right, so excited to get into today's topic. So how to negotiate a lease on your terms as a real estate investor. But before we get into that, let's talk a little bit more about your firm. Tell us a little bit more about what you're up to.
I'm a partner at Gibbs, Giddens, Loker, Turner, Sennett, and Whitbro. As you said, I co-chair our real estate and business law practice groups, and my practice really focuses on entrepreneurs to family offices, startups to middle market companies, and we advise them on their transactions, whether it's on the business side, buying or selling their business, day-to-day operational issues, investing in a business, raising capital. And then on the real estate side, very similar, but buying and selling properties. New business wants to lease a commercial space, we'll help them negotiate that, all the way to financing, development, and even syndications across the country.
And that's why you're the guy that I want on the show to talk about this topic. So how to negotiate leases on your terms as a real estate investor. Where do you want to start with this topic? Hot topic.
Right now, it is an incredible hot topic, not so much on the negotiation outset, but workouts as well, because we are in the middle of COVID-19 and landlords are not getting paid from their tenants, and tenants are having problems struggling paying their landlords. And that just goes to show how important negotiating a good lease at the outset has become, because those that have good, well-written leases are struggling much less than those parties that have just slapped together a few pages and the problems are now coming to light.
Now, obviously, commercial real estate leases are quite complex, and they can be involved, and depending on size of lease, industry. It's a lot, and we only have it's a pretty short 10 to 15 minute segment, so we're not going to go into all the things. But I do know that there are some certain themes or certain things that some of the listeners out there should be thinking about when going into any negotiation that has to do with the lease. What are some of those in your mind?
First, you want to focus on the business terms. Make sure if you've had a real estate broker or even negotiated the lease yourself, make sure that the lease reflects the business points. So the rent is what you negotiated. Make sure the lease reflects the square footage of the space, and also take a really good look at the purpose, whether this is a retail lease, industrial, even office. Make sure that you can get that purpose as broad as you can, because let's say that you are in a retail store and you start off as a nail salon, and maybe that doesn't work out and you want to add in another business line, and you also want to do let's say you're going to do some salon services as well. If your business purpose limits you to a nail salon, you won't be able to add that extra business line. So if you're able to negotiate a broad purpose, maybe by just even adding the words and related purposes or related activities, you can broaden that scope and protect you in the future, where, if you didn't, you might have an unfriendly landlord or relationship might sour, and that may be something that comes into negotiation later on, where if you negotiate it up front, you don't have to have that discussion. You're able to expand your business the way you see fit without interference from a landlord.
Man, and that's so key. And for most people, when you go in, I think especially, it depends. If this is their second, third, fourth property, they've been in business for a long time. But let's talk to some of those newbies out there for a moment, Jeff. And I think sometimes they bank on that relationship on the front end, and they just don't understand how those things can turn over time, right?
You're absolutely correct. And a lot of our clients, they'll come to us really at the advice of maybe their real estate broker, and they think, well, here's the lease. Can I just sign it? And I can't shout loud enough. No, stop, wait, let us read it. Let someone read it, because every lease is different. We've got, in Southern California, there's pre-printed forms that you might get that are 10 pages, and for the same size retail space with a big institutional landlord, you might get this another lease, and that lease is 75 pages. So what's in the bigger lease that's not in the smaller lease, and vice versa? And as a newbie or a startup, you really want to protect yourself. Another area you want to focus on is, what happens if I want to sell my business? I hit it out of the park with this location, or I'm starting this business later in life, and I want to do it for a few years and sell it and take those proceeds and retire. Well, do I need to go get the landlord's permission to sell my business? And often the answer is yes, because there's a transferability section that deals with assignment or subleasing, and often you have to get the landlord's consent to be able to assign the lease. Well, your purchaser of your business is not going to buy your business without your key location. Mm-hmm. So without negotiating that right to assign your business without the landlord's consent, the landlord can theoretically impede the sale of your business. And that's an issue that, hardly anyone thinks through, because, you may be thinking right now, I want to get in the lease, I want to start my business, but you also want to take the bird's eye level approach and look at your business plan from a high level, 3, 5, 10 years out, and think about these things, because too often we run into issues where you may have a great relationship with your landlord. What happens if the landlord sells the building and now it's a big corporate landlord that doesn't have the same relationship with you as your prior landlord? What you negotiated with one landlord doesn't necessarily carry on to the other one unless it's in writing and unless you put it in your lease.
Man, that reassignment, you just brought up a memory. I've seen that happen to more than one person, especially in restaurants that don't own the real estate, like the reassignment part of it. And for the landlord, like, just to be clear for the listeners, like, that's an important thing. So for them, especially something like restaurant space, it's like they're also protecting themselves. So they're not just trying, I don't want either of us to give this impression, because I don't think we are, but I want to make sure we're not, that landlords are these bad people. It's just a matter of, hey, if they're letting you operate a restaurant space and they're expecting you to run it, they don't know that if you sell that restaurant to somebody else that they're gonna succeed. Like, restaurants a tricky business, so sometimes they won't sign that, and you're just gonna have to keep on moving, right?
Absolutely, and I'd say our clients are 50-50 tenants and landlords, and even as a landlord, my clients, they're willing to allow you to sell your business, but there's certain protections you put in place for the landlord, and that the person buying your business, they're going to buy your whole business and not a small stake. Or if you assign it to a new company, it's going to have the same financial backing and assets as when you enter into the lease. So that the landlord's still getting the benefit of their bargain. It's the same financial strength, but that's a workable compromise from both sides, because landlord, I'm protected. I'm confident I'm going to get my rent for the term of the lease, and as the tenant, I'm comfortable that I can assign my lease, sell my business. And the landlord gets, the same business, but just a new operator. So it's workable for both, but you have to have these conversations when you're negotiating your lease to make sure that it's a workable compromise from both.
I love it. I love that. I love the way you position that, because I had to give the other side of the scale, because I'm like, there's some landlords out there listening like, hold on, we're good guys too. I mean, we just want it to be workable for both parties. I like the way you put that. So that being said, Jeff, so final question, and a two-part question. So part one, if somebody's listening to this and they want more information, what are typically the right types of clients that are a good fit for your practice? Part one. Part two, what's the best way for them to reach out?
We work with a lot of different clients and really across the spectrum of business industries, from manufacturers, consumer food products, developers, investors, property owners. So what our specialty is doing these transactions, whether on the real estate or corporate side. So if you're an entrepreneur starting a business, maybe looking for your first retail location or renting office space, we can help you. If you're a middle market company and you're expanding and you need corporate or real estate advice, we can help you. And even entrepreneurs or your family offices, our specialty is also working with high net worth individuals because we're able to help you with both the real estate leasing side as well as corporate side in running and scaling your business. And getting in touch with me is easy. You can check out our firm website at www.gibbsgiddon.com. And my email address is jlove, L-O-V-E, @gibbsgiddon.com.
Fantastic. Well, Jeff, really appreciate you coming on the show today and sharing more about your background and all of the great work that you're doing over at Gibbs Giddon. And to the audience, as always, thank you for tuning in. Hope you got a lot of value out of this. If you did, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, leave me a review in the Apple iTunes Store. And if you're watching this on our YouTube channel, Mission Matters Money, definitely give us a subscribe there, but also leave us some comments in the comment section. Love to know what kind of projects and things that you're working on. And Jeff, thanks again for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me. It was a blast.